Welcome back to episode 8 of Behind the Ballot, where we dive into the political currents shaping the nation and beyond, providing
And
you with
beyond.
and
Sorry.
beyond, and providing you with perspective and information in an engaged, balanced, informative manner. I am your host, Mikal Jenkins, and as always, joined by my co-host.
This is Muhammad Alec.
And today we are going to be unpacking a quad of seismic issues rocking the headlines these last few days. We are going to explore escalating tensions in the Middle East with Israel's announce of a full military occupation of Gaza and the U.S. shifting stance on the BDS movement, raising questions about international law and domestic free speech. Then we move to break down the Congressional Budget Office's staggering 4.1 trillion deficit projection, and well, which is for the Republican-backed One Big Beautiful Bill, alongside Trump's record-breaking 29.6 billion in tariff hauls and a dramatic 16% drop in the trade deficit, while Republicans are fearing growing economic fallout. Finally, we will be diving into the Obama Russiagate probe, heading into a grand jury, a move that could reshape political legacies and really deepen partisan divides. Plus, we'll be covering redistricting wars that are heating up in Texas, Georgia, California, New York, and Indiana as both parties scramble for House control before 2026 midterms. So, buckle up for a deep dive into the policies, players, and power struggles driving today's political landscape.
Power
And
struggle is absolutely the right way to say it because it
yeah,
just seems like desperation from both the Republicans and the Democrats more than ever.
oh, without a doubt, especially on the redistricting front. So it's going to be interesting once we get to that
You know,
segment.
my favorite thing about Texas, and this is sarcasm completely, is how much Greg Abbott stands for Israel when he look that's a joke also because he quite literally can't stand. But then there's a picture of Greg Abbott giving a speech in Texas with 3 Israeli flags behind him and only 1 American flag behind him. I'm like,
United
dude,
States of Israel.
yeah, so like what's the view here? You know what I mean? Do you not see how this looks? You got more Israeli flags than America in America. Like what who are you supporting?
Right.
And
It's very interesting, and that's kind of a good leeway into our first topic, which is going to be, the Israel boycott and the green light for Israel's occupation. So there have been recent developments indicating escalation in Israel's policy towards Gaza. The Israeli cabinet is set to meet actually on Thursday on possible Gaza takeover, and this is in Occupy of Gaza, with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announcing a decision for full military occupation of the Strip. This move, which was reported yesterday, aims to secure the release of hostages and dismantle remaining Hamas infrastructure. According to Israeli media outlets and sources close to Netanyahu's office, they have stated that the decision was influenced by perceived support from the United States under President Trump described as that form of green light for expanded operations. Concurrently, the Trump administration has intensified measures against the boycott, disinvestment, and sanctions movement, which advocates for economic pressure on Israel to end its occupation of the Palestinian territories. Oh, can't
oh
believe
no, we got
that.
technical difficulties.
Technical
Oh,
difficulties,
oh
people.
no.
Sorry about that. So where was I? So yes, so the Trump administration is intensifying their efforts and measures against the BDS movement. That BDS movement, as I was saying before the camera fell, boycott, disinvestment, and sanctions movement, which advocates Israel to alleviate the pressure of its occupation on those Palestinian territories.
You know
So
what's something
Israeli,
funny? Speaking of
yeah,
BDS movement, they back a few years ago when the U.S. government was beginning to sanction the BDS movement, like punishing people who were taking part in it.
yeah,
They the ADL, the leader of it, I'm blanking on his name, but it came out that he believed this kind of move was unconstitutional, but because it was to in his favor, he was like, "Yeah, I don't really care if it's unconstitutional. I think
Yeah.
it should be done." And I think that's just such a good way of explaining this whole Israel United States relationship. Is I don't care if it goes against your country's entire framework and entire constitutional law basis. We're going to do it anyway because that's what we want.
Yeah, and it's utterly ridiculous. I mean, like
Ridiculous.
yesterday, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security initially announced that it would withhold federal disaster preparedness funding, potentially up to 1.9 billion, from states and cities that engaged in or supported boycotts from Israeli companies. Now, there was a lot of pushback and a lot of backlash. You saw a lot of individuals on Twitter really taking storm and saying, United States of America, United States of Israel, and saying, this is really Israel first, not America first. And that heat, on the bottoms of their feet for the DHS, for the Department of Homeland
Homeland.
Security, they actually changed their verbiage in the memo that they sent. So that verbiage is not really like why they removed that explicit requirement that was in there for states and cities to certify that they won't boycott Israel to receive disaster funding. The clause was reworded as a ban on discriminatory, prohibited boycotts. So Homeland Security confirmed that boycotting Israel is still considered
Yeah.
a form of anti-Semitic
So they just
discrimination.
they just took out Israel being directly mentioned
Yeah,
in
so
the
they're not
law,
directly
and then
mentioned.
still like a roundabout way of still saying, but hey, if you don't agree with Israel and you protest against them, you're still going to have some problems.
Right. And this is, not this is just this there's another instance as well with Johnson going to the law and basically adding that the Bible tells Christians to always stand with Israel. Just think about that for a second. A
Yeah.
nation founded in
You,
1948.
You know what's the craziest thing to me about all this? There's two things. One from a spiritual, religious basis, and another one just from a very patriotic basis. One, I'll start off with the patriotic basis. One, there has been so many politicians on the American side that have said things like, "Oh, without Israel, there is no America." Israel is the West, there is the last Western enclave in the Mid East. And it just makes me laugh because I think, do you really view America as that weak? Do you not
Right.
think America can easily handle the entire Middle East if we actually wanted to? Like, we've killed tens of thousands of Middle Easterners, hundreds of thousands, honestly. And what have they done to us? Nothing on a comparative basis, literally nothing. And it just makes me laugh because they don't pose a threat to us. We were talking about this on the other episode where, the only actual enemy of the United States from a military standpoint is Russia. And we've seen that time and time again. China doesn't have uh, the plan to invade nor attack America because it
Yep.
actually absolutely does nothing.
They're
The
going for
Middle East
Taiwan.
also doesn't have that plan because what in the world would they gain from it? Israel gains massive amounts of diplomacy favor from the West by continuing to push the lie that without Israel, you all deal with Islamic terrorism. And the thing
Exactly.
is, Israel has been found to fund Islamic terrorism. They paid Hamas because this is coming from Netanyahu's mouth back in 2013, I believe it was. Netanyahu said the Israeli government was helping pay the Hamas political group because it was a way for them to keep things quiet in Gaza. He quite literally said that. He was like, it's basically paying for quietness.
Yeah. Pay to play
So
almost.
from his own mouth, he's saying, yeah, we're paying these guys because they can handle the other grouping and quelms that may come into the area. Like if another
Hmm.
Muslim terrorist group tries to come in, they can back them out. We don't have to do anything. That's why we're funding them. And then
Right.
all of a sudden, they're starting to cry about how these people are attacking us, XYZ. And not only that, it's also shown and proven that on the morning of October 7th, actually, it was in the early mornings, Israeli IDF forces were told to stand down for 4 hours. And another thing is from Tel Aviv to where October 7th happened is like a 30-45 minute helicopter ride.
Yeah, I
How
really don't
can
understand how you're caught off so hard and so great to in the fact that
yeah.
you
Like
kind
so
of
you
let these levels of destruction happen, not just to your capital where the Iron Dome is that we fund supply. Trump's
completely
trying to do the same thing over here. Um, And he's also trying to put nukes on the moon. I don't know if you saw that. That was a little
Nuclear
funny.
reactors on the
Nuclear
moon. Yeah,
reactors on
all
the moon.
stuff
I
just to
said,
distract
please,
from how bad of a
please.
job he's doing.
I'm like, have we not seen the movie? Oh my gosh, The Time Machine. Have
I
you ever
haven't
seen
seen that
that
movie
movie?
actually.
So
I
it's an
have not.
old, just real quick, it's an old book turned into a movie, The Time Machine. Gosh, I forget the author of it, but basically he's going back to find his wife. Basically, makes a time machine, and then there's a moment where he goes into the future, and humans have colonized the moon.
Yeah.
But then he goes flipping forward again, and then he jumps back to that future with the humans on the moon, and he goes there, and now the moon is falling to Earth because we destabilized it. So it's not saying that this is something that we're going to see in our near future, 20, 30, 50 years down the road, but it's just an interesting how that is a aspect of a certain movie, and now it's actually being talked about as almost real policy in a sense.
It also just blows my mind. Like we have a perfectly, literally the only perfect world we can find in the universe so far, and we're like, we should just go to the moon or we should go to Mars. We should take care of the planet we're on. And I don't mean
Please.
this in like a controversial cut back on all of our energy producing. You know what I mean? I'm not some of those guys who are going to say we need to stop using oil completely. That's irrational and illogical and impossible in modern society.
It's going to be
But
a Wall-E moment.
I am going to say that the idea of a nuclear reactor on the moon is nothing short of ridiculous and just meant to be a headline so he can see himself in the headlines. I
Yeah.
honestly think
Oh
that's
yeah,
what I
without a
believe.
doubt. I mean, I wouldn't think that anyone would really think that that's feasible in a sense. Um, just as I don't think it's feasible as a sense for you know Republican voters as well as Republican constituents to really be supporting Republicans when it comes to Israel, and as well as the level of satisfaction they have with their members of Congress. Um, Not being
Did you
able to vote for their, actually do votes for their district. What was that famous quote? Not famous quote, I guess. If you're a House of Cards fan, it's a famous quote that Frank says, "Vote your conscience, vote your district, and don't surprise me." Right?
Yeah,
If
basically a
every
threat.
member were to keep that, well, to at least keep those two, the "not surprise me" thing, that's a whole Trump scenario there. But just those two, vote your conscience, vote your district, you would see a lot of things change.
Oh
And
yeah, absolutely.
the whole U.S. Israel, how the boycott and the change of that, Republicans now having to vive and more so fight for their Republican voters because they are disdained with the level of relationship and coercion that has been between the Republican Party and Israel. Marjorie Taylor Greene's now even speaking out. So this is
It is
one
going to
of
get worse.
Trump's largest supporters. I think on the trail, she was one of the ones that she was the main mouthpiece you could see. Not to call her a mouthpiece, but she's very vocal about her thoughts, and so forth.
Yeah,
So
she's
to
not
see
afraid to
her
speak
starting
her
to break,
mind.
exactly, to see her starting to break away, and I mean, I'm not someone that was fond of her when she first came into the political scene, but now seeing that she is, doing what Underwood would say to other individuals, voting your conscience and voting your district,
Yeah.
and she is surprising him. So that's something that I do love to see.
Yeah, and
And,
furthermore, I just want to add to that.
mhm.
Well, what were you about to say? I don't want to cut you off while you're mid thought.
No, I was just going to say that, with this, it's going to continue to polarize politics in a sense. Republicans, backing Israel firmly, while Democrats and progressives, pushing for aid conditions or boycotts. So this is
And
potentially definitely going to affect 2026 midterms. It's going to be a huge button issue.
And the thing is also there's literally no logical argument in my opinion from what I've heard of people say that's good for Israel American relations. They take most of our military aid from our taxpayer money that they then use to put in the hands of billionaires, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, et cetera, et cetera. And not only that, then they cause bunch of problems in the Middle East, which then we have to clean up. You know what I mean? They got us involved in Iran just the other
Yeah.
week, just the other month ago. And not only for that, they are the ones who are the architects behind the Middle Eastern invasion, where we saw, attempted 7 wars in 5 years.
Yep.
And what I
Greater
really
Israel, folks. Greater Israel.
Yeah, and the thing is, a big core root of support for Israel comes from American Christians, more specifically the dispensationalism movement, which really took route in like the late 1800s in America and the South, and then just spread among the Protestants, very much so. And the whole argument, you see Ted Cruz say it, you just saw Mike Johnson, the speaker, say it. They
Gosh,
literally say the Bible commands us to support Israel, and a
that
lot of
is
younger
probably
people,
the stupidest stuff that I have ever
the
heard. I have,
stupidest.
yeah, I have never, in reading history and studying history and politics, never known of a politician to state that something is God sent, that what follows is something good. Let's just make
Yeah,
that clear.
yeah.
Whenever you have an individual person that comes into power, whether they're running or whether they're in power, starting to state that this is a divine right, manifest destiny. I know that's an American thing, but that manifest destiny does have a divine connection to it from the Americans' past culture with religion and so forth. So you really have to watch how individuals speak about that, because every politician is not a savior.
No.
They only become a savior when they work with their constituents, when they are actually doing things in their district, not going to the Wailing Wall.
Which may
And
not even be the wall of the Second Temple, but a wall of an old Roman fortress, because Jesus
thank
Christ and his
you, thank
followers
you,
were the ones that destroyed the temple because it
thank
was a
you,
sign of
thank
heathens.
you.
Yeah,
So,
and
with all this, I would think it's also kind of important that, we got to highlight, like, for the Palestinians, this is something that's dire. I feel for them in this sense. We all, me and you both almost sit on the same spectrum, opposite sides. D, a little bit more of an R than me in certain areas, but we both have this sentiment of, it should, the Palestinians, what they're
they're
going through
people.
should, yeah, they're people. They're people.
Simple
This
as
should
that.
not be something that is, glanced over, in a sense. Like, I remember following this with, was it, I think, during Barack Obama's presidency, when they were hosing them and pushing back their settlements on the Gaza Strip more and more throughout his 4 years. So this, it's going to be a lot, and I do feel for the Palestinian people, and I do not think that the lengths that Israel is going to is not going to favor, definitely in the long run, definitely generational, and definitely not in the 2026 midterms, because of how
By no
much
means.
the Republican Party has tied themselves to Israel, in a sense. So globally, it's going to heighten Middle Eastern tensions as well. But there's going to be possibly some escalating conflicts I could see with Iran-backed groups, that, without a doubt. And
Oh
it's
yeah,
going to be very
especially.
complicating for U.S. foreign policy amid the anti-Israel protest. And we'll see if there are protests, and we'll see how that funding mechanism works out with that new revised statement that DHS had put out.
And the thing is, the sticky situation for Israel among American support is that they've lost a lot of ground with a lot of different kinds of ideological people. For
Yep.
example, a lot of the younger people in general are massively anti-Israel. The Democrats as a whole group are extremely anti-Israel for the fact of the war crimes they're committing. It's
Correct.
not because they hate the Israelis. It's because they see what Israel's doing. They think, there is no reason we should be funding this. There is no reason we should be supporting this. I'm not going to back a candidate that supports this. Most Democratic voters feel that across a blanket basis.
Across the
I,
board.
I,
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah. The Republicans, on the other hand, which were the ones that were largely as a base, supported Israel because of dispensationalism and the Bible commands it. We've got a lot of younger Christians who think, no, it doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, if the Bible commands me to support a country that's backing ethnic cleansing and genocide, ongoing genocide, that's not the Bible that I'm reading. You
Yeah.
know
No.
what I mean? Like, the
It's not.
Israel of today isn't the Israel of 2,000 years ago. I'm not sure how you guys came to that conclusion. You know what I mean? Did God predict Benjamin Netanyahu's Israel regime as being the one as the chosen people? You know what I mean? Half of them are from Europe, but they're the
It's
Middle
great,
Eastern
great
chosen
propaganda,
tribe.
man. Great propaganda across the board.
That's exactly what it is. And
That they're able to drill that into not just the some of the electorate within America, but they ingrained that, seared that, branded that in a lot of these members brains and how they need to vote and everything. I mean, with the Kennedy files that got dropped, AIPAC, that was a group he wanted to have listed as a foreign agent, which they are. They're
Yeah.
not American. It's not Americans lobbying other American politicians.
Yeah, this is the
It's a
thing.
foreign government who we don't even who's not even registered as a foreign agent, just freely lobbying our members of Congress, acting like it's like a lobbying firm that's made in the United States. Like that's the level of entrenched that Israel is within the United States, and it's going to take a lot to get it out. And I do think the revolt from the Republicans and their constituents and their voters is going to make them have to change their sentiment. I think, not I think, I know I read a tweet, an X post that said, Republicans should just go along with the support for Israel because Israel's not going anywhere. And like, what is like, just
Like I
because,
saw that post. It was like someone with like 1 million plus followers
yeah,
too. I'm
and
like,
it's,
do you guys really think we're this stupid and naive?
yeah, and like, you really think that we're just going to blindly have, loyalty and trust within a country that we supply everything to? They just drag us into everything and they kill individuals with our weapons. So now our blood is on their hands.
Yeah.
So it's just a constant cycle of us not really looking good, especially on that Middle Eastern regional layout where we should probably be more making partnerships instead of just focusing on Israel and putting all of our efforts in Israel. We need to be shopping around because things are going to be changing
This is the
as
thing.
new
Yeah.
dynamics, go throughout the global, landscape.
This is the thing too. The Emiratis, like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, they're quite big fans of Israel, as much as you wouldn't expect that to be. They,
No, yeah,
for example, the reason why Netanyahu was about to be charged with corruption and investigated and thrown out of office by the Attorney General of Israel was because he was caught accepting bribes from Qatar. And so, like, a lot of people think of why don't these Muslim countries, help out the Palestinians? A lot of Muslim countries are evil too, and I'm saying that as a Muslim. You know what I mean? Saudi Arabia
yeah,
and the UAE are extremely evil country governments, I should say. The people are just people. You know what I mean? It's always the case. The people, 95% of them are just like you and I, literally just
right,
normal people who just want to live their life in peace. But the governments are what we're talking about. And the governments of Israel, UAE, and Saudi Arabia are just filthy, disgusting evil. And Israel is the one that's on the full display with its maliciousness because it's starving and murdering, ethnically cleansing, and genociding the Palestinians.
yes,
And what I think is really the biggest issue here for Israel-American relations in the future is if you just lost the Democrats, you could just keep trying to win over the right. You know what I mean? Like they did with Trump. But now they're completely losing the Republican base because they are all about Trump ran on America first. There's nothing. He hasn't done anything America first regarding all this Israel nonsense.
it's been it's been
Steve Bannon even came out and criticized
yeah,
Israel Trump and was
it
like, "Yeah,
should.
this isn't what is this?
It hasn't been Americans first. It's been Israel first and the 1% first.
1%, absolutely."
I think a lot of voters are going to see that, as well as good segue into our next section. There'll be animosity towards the relationship with Israel, but there'll also be animosity economically as well. So in our next segment here, we're going to be covering the Congressional Budget Office score on the Republican Big Beautiful Bill, which will add 1.4 trillion over a decade. We're also going to touch on the U.S. trade deficit, which plummeted to 16% from May to June. And also, we're going to touch on Trump's record breaking tariff revenue, which is currently in July $29.6 billion. I believe last month it might have been $13 billion or something, or 13 or 1.3, one of those two numbers, I believe. And as you look that up, I'll continue to give some informational background. So the CBO released a score yesterday, actually estimating that the Republican-backed One Big Beautiful Bill (HR1) would increase the federal deficit by 4.1 trillion over the 2025 and 2034 period. This includes 3.3 trillion in direct spending increases and revenue losses, plus $789 billion in higher debt servicing costs due to elevated borrowing rates. So this bill features tax cuts for corporations and high income earners, expanded military spending, that huge ICE spending that was there,
Yeah.
energy sector deregulation. That's why, even this month, I realized my um, PSE&G bill was a little high. um, and a reduction in social programs like healthcare subsidies and food assistance. So also keep this in mind. All these cuts are not going to be falling until 2026. That was done strategically, in a sense, when it comes to messaging for the Republicans gearing up for that 2026 midterms next year. So earlier, the CBO estimated in June 2025 projected deficits of 2.4 trillion to 3.4 trillion, but revisions accounted for macroeconomic effects like inflation and interest rate hikes and so forth. So analysis from the Center for American Progress and the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget warned that the total could hit 5 trillion with interest, leaving it fiscally irresponsible of a policy that they are now calling the big beautiful bill.
Yeah.
So
Big,
I
beautiful
mean,
disaster for
I
anyone
mean,
who's not 75 years old and older.
right, and I don't understand how they're going to market this when they have to go to their districts and really, vie for how is this something that is going to better my constituents in my district. I think I saw a video where one Republican congressman was having a town hall, and his constituents, like, how are we going to, pay for all these things and so forth.
Yeah, Mike
Like,
Flood in Nebraska. I was actually
yeah,
going to
he's
bring
like,
that up.
oh,
I'm glad you brought that up.
I think he was saying what, some cuts or something like that, and they were like, no, you tax the rich. Like,
Yeah.
constituents are going to be hurting. So just because you have that election in 26 and think you might be able to get away with it because you're pushing strategically for a lot of these cuts to really fall down on that 2026 date, doesn't mean that your constituents aren't going to be knowing that behind the scenes or really be paying attention, because now not only are their pockets going to be hurting, but their healthcare is going to be hurting, their education is going to be hurting. It's going to be a lot of services and a lot of programs that, especially in Republican districts themselves, that have a high usage from their constituents for those services that are now not going to be able to use them. So they're going to have to come to terms with a reckoning on that. And then Muhammad,
Yeah, absolutely.
let me get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so this is the thing. Republicans have always been the party of tax cuts and fiscal responsibility, except they don't actually plan fiscal responsibility and they don't actually believe in tax cuts except for the rich.
Right.
And the whole nonsense of we can't afford it is all a lie. We know the government has no issue going into debt. We completely know the government has no issue getting billions of dollars worth of tax cuts. We know all this. So when we hear the same regurgitated bullshit of, oh, we can't afford it. Oh, but you can afford a $250 billion tax cut for the corporations. We can't afford it, but we just ended up cutting more funds and aids. Oh, we opened up another loophole. There is one loophole in the tax code that allows companies to offset their profits into offshore entities. That saves them $48 billion a year. $48 billion a year. And they just got another 14% tax cut from 35 to 21 and back in the TCJA, which saved hundreds of billions of dollars for them. Take in mind, it would cost $57 billion a year to cut every bit of income tax on the first $40,000. If they don't do that because we can't afford it, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. And the people know it. And this is the thing. The Republicans or politicians have gotten used to the idea of like, oh, well, we can't tax the rich. That's what the Democrats want to do. And the voters like, dude, we don't care. We don't care if that's what the Democrats we don't want to do. We don't care if that's what you guys don't want to do. We that's what we want. We don't care if anybody or if the opposite side wants it as well. Sure, they're great. Glad they want it. We want it, and we're going to demand it. And yeah, the video was really telling because it was like a deep red in Nebraska, and these people were yelling, tax the rich. And the moment he said, we can't afford Medicare for all, the entire group erupted into booing. Yeah. And the thing is, it was a fair question. It wasn't even, the question was, should every working American be guaranteed health care? It wasn't even should every American be guaranteed health care. It was should every working American be guaranteed health care? That's very reasonable, even.
Yeah,
Like,
very
yeah, sure,
reasonable.
don't give health care to the people who aren't working, but if you sign up for a job, you automatically get health care from the US. And he was like, no, we can't afford that. What do you mean we can't afford that? We can send
No.
15 billion to Israel 1 year. We can afford 150 billion tax cuts. We pay 1.1 trillion in interest a year. 1.1 trillion in interest per year. And you're telling me we can't afford it? That's a bunch of hogwash bullshit. And people know it. People know it. You know what I mean? We got the internet. People can just literally search up things to see how much money the government's pulling in. They'd be like, dude,
Exactly.
this is so, I can see this for my own eyes. You know what I mean? I don't have to rely on outside sources telling me now about things that I can just search up on my own accord. And the big thing is Bernie Sanders' tax plan would cost 1.76 trillion a year. And I don't agree with every component of his. I'm not his tax plan, his Medicare for All plan. I don't agree with every component of his Medicare for All plan, but it was estimated to cost about 1.76 trillion a year. Now, a big thing that always makes me laugh when people talk about Medicare for All is they be like, well, who's going to pay the medical debt? I'm like, dude, it's debt owed to health insurance companies. Just don't pay it. Who cares? Literally, what the government's gonna go down because we chose not to pay the people's debt to health insurance
Right.
companies?
Or just provide a provision in there that they can somehow write it off to a certain
Just write it off, carry over the loss for the next 15, 20 years. Carry off the loss indefinitely if you guys have to. Not my damn problem.
Exactly.
My damn problem is giving the people help Medicare and health insurance. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous, and it's all just lies. And the more these people, the thing is, dude, most Americans are just normal people. You know what I mean? You see a lot of crazy discourse online, but most of the stuff is online. The dead internet theory is real. More than 50% of online traffic is bots. This is just people from India, China, Israel, Russia, putting in bots meant to just stir up drama. And what's ridiculous about it is that politicians take way too much of what's online serious. You know what I mean? Like we've seen some politicians. Randy Fine's one of the best examples because of how dramatic he's been. But we just see it all the time. You sent me the one picture of Nancy Mace with the, this is her jeans. I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Crockett and the whole Latina Spice. Jeez.
Yeah, exactly. Like these politicians don't care about getting actual work done. They care about their shining spotlight. They care about their 12 minutes of fame. They care about leaving a mark by being remembered as a congressman who was cool. I'm like, dude, you okay? I'd much rather be, if I was a politician, I'd much rather be remembered as the guy who got Medicare for all for the entire country. I'd much rather be known as the guy who cut taxes for the working class, not as the girl who was yelling all the time, not as the guy who was wishing death upon Muslims. Like, what? It's ridiculous what these politicians have in mind and what their priorities are. And speaking of the CBO and the big beautiful bill and the tariffs as well, they love to say that we're not going to be facing the effects of these tariffs. The prices won't be passed down to consumer. But let's look at Ford. Ford has been taking the brunt of the tariffs without pushing too much down to the consumer. They posted billions in losses related to tariffs. Billions. Most of their car manufacturing is in America. The reason why they're going down is because a fifth of American steel is imported. Only a fifth of American steel is imported because of a lot of it from Canada. Because of the big increase in tariffs on Canada, we are going to see, this is the thing, we have the North American Free Trade, that NAFT, that North American Trade Treaty, I believe it's actually called.
North America Free Trade Agreement? NAFTA?
No, it's different than NAFTA. It's different than NAFTA, but it's something that's still in play. So most goods that go between Canada and United States and Mexico aren't affected by that larger, I think it's 30%, 25% now, that's on Canada. But steel is one of those goods that is affected by the tariffs. And we've seen, here, let me pull up the article actually. We've seen steel producers as well. In the second quarter, the average price of Steel Dynamics steel was $1,134 per ton, up from $998 months before in the first quarter. So that's an increase of about 15% in 3 months. That's a lot.
Yeah.
15% in 3, and that goes all the way down the supply chain. That affects the cars. That's how Ford's getting hit. All the steel they're importing to make their cars with is now just more expensive. 15 more expensive than it was in March. So while these companies are in these governments are paying the companies in these foreign governments and the companies in America are paying the tariffs, some of them are not taking on the loss down to the consumer and they're getting hit by it hard, like Ford. Others, mind you, are deciding to pass on the payment to consumers, and it's being hit. Is going to hit the consumer. For example, America is the largest coffee drinking country in the world. We just hit Brazil with 50% tariffs. Coffee is going to get 50% more expensive.
Yep.
And the thing is, this isn't me just saying this. So, Cafe, Brazil's coffee exporting council said the impact on Brazilian roasters and exporters will be significant and warned American coffee drinkers to brace for price hikes. Brazilian producers and exporters are working on contingency plans to work around this, but products are expected to face sharp price increases. Cafe said it won't be easy to find other markets for the 8.1 million tons of coffee currently exported to the U.S. New markets are opening in Asia and the Middle East. However, according to Cafe, they won't be able to absorb all the potential of the U.S. shortfall. So
Get your coffee now.
Get your coffee now. It's going to go up about 50. It's going to go up around 50%. It's going to go up in price. I can't guarantee you how much exactly, because that will depend on how much the corporation America wants to take on the brunt of the price and how much they want to pass on. But they will. They've admitted that they're going to increase the prices, and it's just going to get worse in a time where Americans are not poorer than ever, but more than 10% of the country is impoverished. People are auto loans have now faced I think since the recession, since the 2008, it's the highest that we've had auto cars be delinquent on their loans.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of the economy is weak and we're now about to get hit with even more turmoil. It's not good. I don't
climbing.
Yeah, I don't care about what the White House says about, we're getting more tariff imports than ever with the amount of money we're getting. Oh, this is a record-breaking deal. We're lowering the deficit. They've already done the damage to the deficit by cutting taxes for the rich. They've already done the damage to the deficit by that's the biggest thing. As you just mentioned, Mikal, the BBB, the big beautiful bill, is a disaster.
Yeah, it's a disaster. It's going to be utterly horrible as its effects, ripple throughout the American structure, the working structure, the healthcare structure, the tax structure, the revenue structure. It's all going to change. And kind of just want to give some tidbits on the other items on this segment for the podcast. So the CBO's 2025 outlook projected a baseline deficit of 1.9 trillion for the fiscal year 2025. So with the national debt nearing 120% of GDP by 2035. And now you have Republicans arguing the bill stimulates the growth through tax relief, potential offsetting costs, while Democrats highlight risk like Medicare and estimating 20 million could be off of health insurance. And then additionally, the U.S. trade deficit narrowed significantly by that 16% that we had mentioned earlier from May to June, dropping from 96.6 billion to 60.2 billion, the lowest since September 2023. So this is mostly followed a record high 140.5 billion in March, driven by import stockpiling ahead of President Trump's tariffs, because that's a lot of companies getting ready to bear the brunt of these tariffs. And the June decline resulted from a sharp drop in consumer goods imports. So with exports at 277.3 billion, down from 278 billion, and imports at 337.5 billion, down from 350.3 billion. So then moving on to kind of like that, the tariff revenue from the custom duties and so forth that we also touched on, that 29.6 billion is contributing to a fiscal year exceeding of 100 billion and quadrupling from what happened in June last year, which is actually 6.3 million. And this surge is, driven by the tariffs, of course, which helped produce 27 billion budget surplus for June. And, through year to date, the deficit has remained at that 1.337 trillion currently. So, President Trump has also announced tariffs on imported pharmaceuticals. I don't know if you saw that as well. Muhammad, starting at a small but potentially escalating 250% over 18 months to encourage domestic manufacturing and reduce reliance on foreign suppliers.
I
He's
don't
also
care.
going,
I don't care about anything related to drugs until they cut prices in America.
yeah, I think they need to just cut prices across the board. I think what Americans are paying for, especially insulin, in the sense,
Bro, we pay like
it's just
30 times the price of every other
it's a
country
life
for
saving
medicine
drug.
made in our country.
Right, basically, you have to sell your house to get what you need to survive. It's only going to get worse once these Medicaid cuts really settle in. Sticking to the tariffs, there's another tariff is the 15% on branded pharmaceutical products from the EU, and furthermore, Trump has threatened to impose a 35% tariff on the European Union if it fails to fulfill that, I think, 600 billion investment commitment that he did the whole signing for all the way back then. So you see how we were saying earlier, like it might not actually be that 600 billion, and now he's threatening them if they don't. He's going to continue up these tariffs, and then it's a continuation as well of him threatening, accusing and threatening India for fueling Russia's war machine by purchasing and reselling Russian oil, threatening to substantially hike tariffs on Indian imports from the current 25% potentially within, the next 24, 48 hours.
Ooh, they're
So
just gonna go buy more from Russia and China. Wow, so
yeah,
smart.
right. And kind of we've been talking about how Republican fears and splits almost with the party and MAGA and so forth. There was a Hill article that's stated that some Republicans are fearing that Trump's tariffs are cutting into the economy, kind of like how we're speaking, and especially after that disappointing and blame staking jobs report that he was trying to blame wasn't his.
Yeah, Biden's fake numbers.
Yeah, revised gains down by 250, 100,000 from May to June. Key figures like Rand Paul, Jerry Moran have voiced concerns about delayed economic impacts, which is what we were saying about the 2026 cuts and how they'll affect next year, not this year really.
And the tariffs are going to be taken in effect the second half of this year because he waited until now to really put in most of them.
Right.
So
Yep.
this next year and a half is going to be rough.
Yeah, so the implications here are with the 4.1 trillion deficit. It's going to increase risk, exacerbating the U.S. debt crisis, potentially leading to credit ratings downwards and higher borrowing costs for consumers. The 2.96 billion July tariff revenue is going to be a short-term fiscal boost. You have to understand that, and it's unlikely to offset the big beautiful bill's long-term cost, as tariff income may decline if imports continue to fall or partners negotiate exemptions. So the national debt already at 36 trillion with 921 billion in annual interest could face pressure limiting future policies flexibility down the line. So there's going to be a lot of economic impacts, not in the coming months, but definitely within the next year. By the time we're at this time around next year, you're going to be seeing and feeling a lot of those impacts. And Johnson said he's going to look at a couple other reconciliation bills. So we'll see if those bills are going to be something that further enforces the big beautiful bill, or they're going to try to pass legislation that kind of curtails some of the things that they did within this big beautiful bill. And as we've been saying, it's really going to affect voters in their district, because they're the ones that are going to be impacted the most by far.
Oh yeah, I can't believe it. I understand why, but it's so. Look at what Massey's doing, standing
Yeah,
firmly against Trump. He's been single-handedly winning his district with no issue, despite constantly going against the party. He actually serves the people, and then you get the other Republicans who are like, "Well, this is wrong, but the president wants it." It's just grow a spine. Where's the backbone? You're a grown man. You know what I mean? Be a man. Remember Ted Cruz when Trump insulted his wife, and then Ted Cruz when he became Trump president was like, "Oh yeah, Trump's the best. Trump's amazing."
yeah, best man. Yeah,
Like, dude, you are a pussy. You know what I mean? And it's
surprised his
just,
wife didn't divorce him after that.
I'm surprised too. I'm surprised too. I'm like, dude, you have no backbone. And it's just, I think Ted Cruz is the perfect example of what's wrong with the Republican Party.
No, I definitely agree. And he's not just the only thing that's wrong with the Republican Party. And this is going to actually take us into our next segment, which is really detailed filled. So definitely our listeners, uh, be sure to catch what we're getting ready to say here because this is topic three. We're looking at Obama Russian Gate investigation continuing to grand jury and the continuation of the Epstein saga, which has been all over the news since this kind of really this crusade, I'll call it, kind of really started. So on August 4th, 2025, funny enough, coinciding with former Barack Obama's 64th birthday, and mind you, he's 64. That's he's I think Biden is about 17 years older than him,
It's crazy
so
to
it's kind of
me.
crazy.
It's crazy to me how in the last 20 years, let's see, since 2008, he's been the youngest president we've
Youngest
ever
president.
had.
Yep.
How? How?
He will probably see the most presidents like post being president. You know what I mean? Like he'll probably live through a lot of presidents through their
Yeah.
time. Not saying live through like they serve and they die. He outlives them. Just he'll be living through a lot of different presidencies throughout his lifetime.
Yeah.
So, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi directed federal prosecutors to convene a grand jury investigation into allegations of a Russiagate hoax. So we're back with this, my volunteer listeners. This is where we're at again with the Russiagate hoax. So now, well, not now, but continuing to involve Obama era officials. This stems from a criminal referral by DNI Secretary Tulsi Gabbard, accusing figures like former CIA Director John Brennan, FBI Director James Comey, former DNI James Clapper, and possibly Hillary Clinton and Obama himself for fabricating intelligence on Russia interference in the 2016 election to undermine Donald Trump. And as of today, they're having a lot of developments from that, which we're going to let known here. So, as of today, the House Oversight Committee will be subpoenaing the following subjects, and I'm going to give dates to when it's possible these individuals may be testifying. So, we're going to go in date
Maybe
order.
is the big word
Yeah,
there.
that's if they comply with it or not. And then, other court orders will follow after that, I would imagine, from the US, from the DOJ, honestly.
Yeah.
So starting with first with former U.S. Attorney General William Barr, he is looking to be scheduled August 18th. Former U.S. Attorney General Alberto Gonzales, August 26th. U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who was appointed and confirmed during Trump's first presidency, he will be on the spot August 28th. Former FBI Director Mueller, September 2nd. Former U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch. I don't know if you guys remember that whole tarmac thing with her back during Trump's presidency. I believe there's a little. I forget what the situation was about something regarding a tarmac deal to an extent. So that's going to be September 9th. Attorney General Eric Holder, September 30th. Attorney General Merrick Garland, October 2nd. Former FBI Director James Comey, October 7th. Hillary Clinton, October 9th. And the grand man himself, Bill Clinton, October 14th.
Big Bill Clinton, BBC Bill. They
Yep.
I hope people at my work don't watch this.
See, I'm looking forward to really see what they're going to say, and even if they actually go forward with it. But what's also interesting is that the fact that the House Oversight Committee is focusing on this, not saying it's not. I mean, I think it's distraction, a waste of time
from Epstein.
Yeah, from Epstein in a sense, but also the House Oversight Committee also subpoenaed, I believe it was Trump and his Department of Justice for Epstein files. So it's a double-edged sword here. You got one side of the sword that's trying to cut through, figure out the truth, not the truth for the Obama Russiagate situation, smoke and mirrors, distraction. Then you have on the other side of the blade them trying to cut into the Epstein files. And just how we were saying before with the rule of five, it seems like it worked, and they were able to actually now they're actually going to try to get these files and start detailing them. And I don't know if you saw that the administration was actually looking at releasing the transcript from Maxwell's testimony, and Maxwell actually came out against it.
Yeah, the grand jury testimony,
Yeah, the
correct?
grand
Like
jury
that.
testimony. Yep,
Yeah. What?
she's actually against it,
I
which is
wonder why.
interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah, I wonder
wonder.
why.
Really do wonder why. Kind of like what's in that. Wish we could get like a little secret sneak peek of that. That'd be nice.
Yeah,
But
like I feel like, I mean, she's in the position where uh before we get into that, just to give a little bit more info for our listeners. So when somebody gets subpoenaed by Congress, what are the what happens if they choose not to show up? Do they get warrants sent out from the DOJ from that for their refusal to comply with Congress, or what happens?
yeah, so it'd be kind of like what's going on in the Texas redistricting. I really can't wait till we get to that topic. That's going to be next. So kind of the same thing in that
Yeah.
situation.
So then,
Um,
say they put out these warrants from the DOJ. Them. So are they? Can the federal government actually send federal agents to these people in order to forcefully bring them into Congress, or like just send them to jail? How does
yeah,
that work?
yeah, they can
Okay.
force it
Huh.
because it's their job and it's their duty.
Yeah.
So no matter what, it's technically negligence at the end of the at the end of the day. It's negligence across the
Yeah.
board. Negligence not doing what they gave oath to do. So that's kind of where they can get them in a sense. Because when
Yeah.
you do your regular job, you're not in you're not taking an oath.
Yeah.
It's a lot different when you take an oath and you have to stand by that oath. Anything that you do to contradict that oath could lead to things of this nature. That's why we'll definitely touch on it. Why you see Abbott, actually asking the FBI and Cash Patel to actually use the FBI to bring in some of these Democrats that are in Illinois, New York, and other
I saw Abbott asking
states as
about
well.
that. I was going to say he's
Exactly.
got that Israel spy girlfriend, so he probably knows where everybody already is.
Yeah, and a little funny tidbit on that. She actually said that she's not a spy, which spies would say,
That
and
makes me,
that
yeah.
she's
That makes me
actually,
think she's a spy
yeah,
more than ever.
and that she actually would want the files to be released so that she's not seen as a file. I think that's also another thing that a spy would say because they know that they're not going to be released.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like what Trump with all this stuff, like, oh, I want the Epstein files out. It's just they're just
Yes,
fraudulent. They've been forged. Like, yeah, man, like you're clearly just pushing this all away. So you can act like you want one thing while you do another. It's the typical politician deceiving game.
exactly, and kind of like how we've been talking about, kind of like the Republican sentiment and the fraction that is continuing, and something that Republicans are going to have to really deal with down the line. It's interesting, though, all of these things are coming out Epstein, Russiagate as a hoax. I mean, Russiagate as a distraction and so forth. 47% of Republicans would still support Trump, um, even if he was in the files.
I mean, he
So that
wasn't
should
kidding
go
when
to really show you where some of those values for or Republicans are changing to where they used to be the value party, the Christian party, to now they will actively and openly vote for an individual that has been accused, is in pictures with, and has videos of saying things and videos of other individuals saying things in conversation with him, pedophilic actions,
yeah,
pedophilic
this
pictures.
is
It's mind-boggling in the sense to
mind-boggling.
where you bash Biden over the head for that, was it like almost like 10, 11, 12 minute clip or 6 minute clip of him throughout different C-SPAN clips of him, giving kisses to little girls, and she's kind of like inappropriate.
Yeah,
Gonna
inappropriate
blast
physical
that,
touch.
but not blast something that is of this nature and of this magnitude. But 47% will go and still vote for him.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I feel he wasn't kidding when he said, I could shoot somebody and kill them and I still wouldn't lose voters,
No,
That's
he was
he would
dead
lose
serious.
some, but clearly as we're seeing, half of them would still support him even if he was a sexual rapist pedophile. And when I think that I would love to see the correlation between the people who would support Trump still if he was found to be convicted of raping American children, and the people who still deeply support Israel on the Republican side as well.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that there's a correlation between the two, because it's when you can justify murdering and starving children. I feel like it's also pretty easy to justify the rape of children. It doesn't seem like you value life that isn't agreeing with your line, and
All
if it
right.
doesn't agree with your line, It doesn't even have to be something complicated. It can literally be like, oh, that person saw one I don't know. Why do I care? You're
And
a
Republicans are
human.
going
You
to have to
should
deal
care
with
about
this.
other humans. It's just as simple as that.
And they're seeing a lot of been following a lot of the generic ballot polls and so forth. So currently, today there was one out. It was Democrats at 45%, Republicans at 40, America Party at 9, and other at 6. So this is generic ballot. Basically, who would you, what
Vote
party
for.
would you would generically vote for down ballot voting? Basically, down ballot voting is basically you just go Democrat, Republican, America Party, Independent across the board, across all races that are on your ballot for your district, county, state, whichever.
Yeah.
So then, peering deeper into that, looking at some approvals, disapprovals, which I feel like I don't know how to really sit with these numbers because, like, I understand his disapproval is going up, but I guess you could say I'm not really seeing that sentiment in a sense. I mean, maybe it's just like my circles of friends, they also I feel like don't feel that sense in his disapproval. I don't think it's something that's has been naturally felt in the political world that he is actually, disapproved of the way he is governing the country. Just to
I
give three real quick
yeah.
polls, real quick, and I'll let you go. YouGov disapprove 55, approve 43%. Morning Consultant 52% approve, 45 sorry, 52 disapprove, 45 approve for
I'm
Morning
about to say.
Consultant.
Yeah.
So for Rasmussen, which is a Republican-leaning pollster, you have disapprove 51%, approve 48%. So even with a right-leaning, you see that there's margin of error there within those numbers. Within just really that poll, all the other ones are really almost 10 points, 10-point swing. So this is going to be something he's going to have to reckon with.
Well,
And
and
it's
this
with the
go ahead.
Russiagate, the Epstein files, everything like that in a sense. And let me get your take on that.
This is the thing. A lot of Trump's voters are older Americans. They I believe he had 60% of the senior vote. Like, like a majority more than the Democrats. And largest reason why was because he was touting Social Security cuts, not to Social Security cuts, but no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, no tax on tips. And a lot of seniors, rightfully so, are bothered about how their Social Security benefits are set up because, one, for those who don't know, every American has to pay Social Security tax, which is, I believe, off the top of my head. Actually, let me just Google this because I have the ability to do that. Social Security tax percentage, I believe, 12.4. So that's split into two. It's 12.4% for Social Security specifically, and then you get a portion for that. But that's for Medicare. But furthermore, we all pay a 12.4% of Social Security until we get to the point where we pay it's around 125,000 in Social Security direct tax. Because when the system was first set up, they had these numbers in plan and they had population percentages in mind that just haven't worked out as they've expected it to back in the past decades ago when they set up Social Security. And so we're in the position now where when the richest people don't have to pay Social Security tax, because like I said, you only pay it for 125,000. Once you pay that amount, you never have to pay it again. So most Americans pay Social Security tax their entire life. And then you get your Social Security taxed. All the meanwhile, the rich people who could by far afford to give the most money to Social Security don't, because the
Yeah.
system is just set up like that. And the thing is, if you could put a 3% flat tax instead of a 12.4%, and then just apply that tax to every earning, including like capital gains earnings, including things like that, Social Security would benefit far more. It would.
Far more.
There's a continuing issue where Social Security benefits are getting lower and lower based off the portion of what was originally given because the fund just can't sustain itself with its current model.
And it's
No,
not going to sustain it anymore. Because once our younger generations are like, why am I even putting money into this?
yeah.
Don't take it out of my paycheck
Honestly, if I
anymore.
could without getting in trouble, I wouldn't pay federal
Uh,
taxes. I'm not kidding. I'm not
I'm not
kidding.
going. I'm not going to go that far. But I'm
Dude,
just Social Security.
I lean more
Definitely.
towards libertarian. I will say this.
Social Security definitely stop taking that out from my check, please. I'd rather
Politically,
put
I
it in the
lean a
stock
lot
market.
more. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, see, I'd rather put in the stock market than having my money go to Social Security, which I'm probably never going to see in my lifetime. But go ahead.
Yeah. And a lot of people feel that way. That's
Yeah.
actually what I was just about to say. And a lot of people are thinking, like, why do I want to put a benefit into this when I'm not going to get anything out? It's literally the government stealing your money with a promise of giving it back, and they never give it back.
They just borrow it out. Basically, it's
And,
just like almost like the banks do in a sense.
yeah, and the thing is, Social Security is in a sticky situation. We'll use this to segue into Texas redistricting. So the
Big stuff
Social Security is in a position where it's one of the most supported programs in America, but it's also one of the things causing the U.S. debt to grow as large as it is. 20% of the spending for America is for Social Security recipients. And furthermore, the reason why that's so high and unsustainable is because, as we just mentioned, once you pay that 125%, 125,000, you no longer have to pay any. And as most Americans know, most of the money in this country is with the top 1%. And so when we're talking about how are we going to improve this program, politicians barely touch it because it's a can of worms. Oh, I want to make changes to Social Security. That alone sets off a firestorm. Like, oh, this guy wants to change Social Security, one of the most popular programs in American history, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you get fake news coming down on you, which is true. And I'll give an example in a moment here of saying what's not true, and then it doesn't make any progress to actually benefit Social Security. For an example, the Social Security Administration, when the big beautiful bill was signed by Trump, they said this is the greatest win for seniors in history of Social Security. Now we're not going to have any tax on these payments. And then when the AF Post and New York Times reached out, like, hey, you guys do know Social Security is still being taxed, right? Like, you can just deduct some at the end of the year, but you're not going to get nearly as much in tax savings from that as you would have just by not having it be taxed. Social Security Administration didn't say anything. But to all the people who like are part of Social Security, to all the people who follow the news, they see that, they think, oh, this is great, and they don't realize they've been duped until they keep getting taxed, and then their taxes come around. They're like, well, why do I still have the same amount of money? I thought I was going to have more. And when you want to reform Social Security, it comes down to the point of where do you start and how do you go about it? Because I honestly would be on board with, like, I agree with you there, putting Americans more on private investment plans from birth. That's the one of the few things I like that Trump did with the big beautiful bill is $10,000 in every American's natural born citizen's bank account for an investment savings account in the S&P 500 the moment they're born. That's a great idea, because then we can literally just wean people off Social Security once we get to that point where these people have gotten that benefit, and we can take that 20% of federal spending off of our balance sheet and off of our income statement and balance sheet, and it would be very, very useful for planning more proper government responsible spending. But the thing is, if you could try to even recommend that, the headline that will come out of you saying, hey, 40 years from now, this program will help us cut Social Security, all that will come out in the headlines is Representative, let's just say, Thomas Massey wants to cut Social Security. Huge firestorm, even though it's complete BS. That's so many people just read the headlines. I'm guilty of it too sometimes, you know what I mean? And when you just don't have even the time to go about reading the news, you just see that headline, you think, oh, what the hell? And it's a sticky situation that I do feel bad about the people who are in the situation where they are the seniors actively getting these benefits, and they want the program to be around because for a lot of these people, it's literally their livelihood. It's literally how they live. They want this program to be around, but then they're like, well, I don't want to make changes to it because what if it affects it negatively and then I'm screwed? You know what I mean? Yeah. How am I going to live? And the seniors are a very large voting bloc in America. 20% of voters are senior citizens.
Mm-hmm. When I worked at the Philadelphia State, when I worked for State Representative Stephen Kinsey, a lot of our constituents were the elderly folk, the elderly individual. They were the individuals that went out to vote, the lowest voting for that district. Which, if anyone's curious, it's the 201st legislative district within Philadelphia, Germantown, Mount Airy, a little bit of Logan area. So that's a high senior population, as well as one of the poorest districts within Philadelphia itself. And a lot of our constituents, they were mostly seniors. So that's in a lot of communities. And what I would kind of do is like a restructuring way, if I was president, I would still have Social Security, but have it being a phase out program,
I agree.
Not a phase out program. And then we partner with, the big financial institutions. They got to be not brought down to their knees, as broken up, more restrictions, more regulations, but brought to their knees as you need to be able to provide private plans to Americans that they can affordably go into and have no risk of seeing their investments dwindle, manipulated, or just straight out. There needs to be a progressive way, and I think having whether it's Robinhood, Schwab, um, TD Ameritrade, or one of these big trading banks or platforms, partnering with the United States to actually be able to put together a very well orchestrated, whether it's an IRA or S&P 500 as Trump is doing, or something like that to give Americans a better feeling than just seeing your money being taken on Social Security and understanding that you're probably not going to see it later down the line, or
Yeah.
it's in your 401k and you can't do certain things with it, so you take it out, you put it in stocks because it's going to do better, things of that nature. I think the benefit structure, there we go. That's it. The benefit structure is really what needs to change in America, I feel like,
Yeah.
across the board, the whole benefit structure.
I agree.
And, that is going to obviously be a little different in each state as, this kind of what you were saying, the redistricting is coming in full fledged effect from almost, can't say almost every state, but major states are making
Cali,
the move that are
Texas, New
in
York.
2026.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
just to finalize this while we segue into redistricting, is that as we mentioned, Social Security is a hotbed topic. You know what I mean? I personally believe that I'm much more on the side of people should handle their own money. You know, let people keep their money without tax, without getting it taxed on some nonsense that they're not going to get benefits from. I think personal finance classes should be required every single year of high school, and it should be one of the most deeply taught curriculums. And the thing is, as well, big reason why we're seeing redistricting right now is this, that we're a big push from Trump is because the Republicans are seeing, a lot of not stagnation, but the structure is crumbling for their voter base for what they rely on.
yeah,
And so because of what they're getting nervous about what they're seeing, they're trying to force slash motivationally push Texas on a federal basis to redistrict their maps. And as we've seen, Texas Democrats have actually fled the state to avoid quorum so they can slow down the passage of this. And now, Mikal, they're doing this for multiple reasons. But as we just, as we're talking about, the biggest one is so they can maintain more control of the House by,
yeah.
districting it to be their benefit. So can you give us like a little play by play of what's been going on with all this redistricting, mayhem?
So with the redistricting, as I think I last 2 episodes ago, I think I was saying when I was with State Rep Stephen Kinsey, we tried to put together the independent review commission for redistricting in a sense. So from that last 2 episodes, there have been a lot of developments that have happened. So I'm really just going to start with some basic numbers: what states can enact what requires a court order, what can be done unilaterally in a sense. So just give individuals kind of a thought. And really where all this started was actually with, yes, Trump did ask Texas to look into it, but then also the Supreme Court is now taking up the constitutionality of race-based districts. Okay.
It will be
So
interesting to see how that works, honestly.
that's really I would say the time bomb in it all. It's not the states doing it. It's if that is taken up and ruled not in favor of, that's going to change a lot. So just give a little lay down of what different states could do different things. So different states considering redistricting for 2026. We have Texas, which has been a hot topic because they are the first state to really look at this. They're looking to add 5 seats for Republicans. Then we were looking at Florida, who is looking at 3 to 5 seats. And I actually read reports that some Floridian state legislators are actually not in an appetite for doing this mid-century redistricting. We have Ohio, another Republican state, doing a 2-seat redistricting, possibly Indiana, another Republican state, 1 to 2 seats. And then Missouri has just recently been in the news looking to do a 1-seat redistricting. And California, which requires a constitutional amendment, which would have to be put on the ballot and then voted on just as a referendum in the sense. It's kind of like what Newsom has been pushing have the voters vote on the redistricting in a sense. So
Yeah.
they're trying to do a 5 seat cutout.
I saw they're trying to get that vote done
Yep,
ahead of
a 5 seat
2026
cutout.
midterms.
Yep. And New York is jumping into it. New Jersey is jumping into it. So kind of just going into who can do a unilateral and who needs court orders or special elections. So unilaterally, only Ohio, Missouri, Florida, Texas, Indiana, and Oregon. Oregon is also a state looking at it now too. They can act unilaterally just to do mid-century redistricting. California, Washington, New Jersey, and New York all require either court orders or special elections. So kind of to just give some more, background into all of this. Realistically, like it's going to be dangerous. It's going to be partisan redistricting, and it's going to keep going on until 2026 is really here. Like even in Georgia, Republican leaders are unlikely to pursue the mid-decade redistricting despite the national trends. But on August 4th, the yesterday actually, the Georgia GOP is they're not going to follow the aggressive approach as Texas, but they're focusing instead on other priorities like voter audits, targeting non-residential addresses, and so forth.
Yeah.
So, like, however, broader redistricting discussions in the state remain part of like an ongoing litigation and planning for future cycles. So that's really all of this is. It's planning for that 2026, that 2028, just making sure that each party kind of has their bases shored up and who can really take the advantage before these 2026 midterms get here. And I tweeted this out as well, and this is something that I definitely think it's. Take me if I'm wrong. I think Democrats deserved this.
I agree.
I think it was a long-standing pressure, forefront, guidance to make everything race-based in a sense.
Yeah.
So they did everything. So both parties are doing identity politics. Democrats did it demographically. Republicans are doing ideology, doing it more in a thinking method instead of who you are. It's not who you are that will make you a part of the party. It's what you think that will make you part of the party. That's why they figured, this redistricting needs to happen, and the Supreme Court needs to actually take up, if race-based districts is something that is constitutional or not. Vance is planning a trip. JD Vance is planning a trip to Indiana, which I stated is a state that is looking to do it as well. So the vice president is actively taking a role and trying to shore up other states to do this level of redistricting.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting. I think this is going to I would say going to weaken the American structure because it's only going to be relevant when a new party is in place to try to make more power and more gain. It's not going to be about having the best members representing their districts. It's only going to be about how can we win the next election? How can we make sure that in 2026, whether it's Republican or Democrats, don't have enough seats to fight the opposite party's agenda? And it's going to hurt a lot of people. A lot of people are going to be hurt by this.
Yeah.
I understand the Democrats' sentiment and wanting to flee the state and so forth, but sometimes when the music has been called, you got to answer and listen.
And it's important to know,
and it's going to suck. But
it's important to note that this has happened twice before, where the Democrats of Texas fled the state to avoid a quorum for legislation they didn't like, and both times the legislation still got passed.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of this is very performative. And, even if honestly, even if you disagree with what the Texas Republicans are doing, you're getting paid by the taxpayers to be there. Don't flee the state with the help of the Indiana governor and other politicians from other states.
Indiana, New York.
Yeah, to not do your damn job. If you really care about it, if you think it's that wrong, make your case for why the map is poor. If you can't make a proper logical case, then argue one that's emotional. If you can't make an emotional case, how's it? There's this one quote I like. Here, let me.
Well, I will say the reason is because they know that vote is going to go through.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's nothing that they can. So that's the thing. There's nothing that Texas Republicans can do to stop this from happening. That's why they fled. they know there's nothing they can do. They don't have the votes. They don't have the backing. It's a Republican state. And, Crockett is actually going to be taken out of her district. Do I think that's possibly maybe good for the Democratic Party? We need maybe someone else to better represent the Democratic Party in the sense and not really try to do those, spicy Latina
Performative
videos and
nonsense.
performative nonsense and, not the loud talking, but the intensive talking and, pointing at committee hearings and so forth. I've watched, the videos. It's moving to watch in a sense, but it's not pragmatically something
It's
I
not
want from my
inspiring.
member of Congress in a sense.
Yeah.
Like it's moving, but it's not inspiring. It
Yeah.
doesn't get me to be like, yes, I think she may be the future of the Democratic Party, which I think would be a very, very bad shot. And if anything, a shot in both
Absolutely.
feet if the Democrats would do that. But as we were saying, go ahead.
Yeah, so I fully agree with you there. I mean, if your ability to be a politician relies on, race-based districting, you're missing the point. You should be putting up policy that anybody would find good for their cause. And this isn't like a means of saying like, oh, you need to put up some, you need to promise something unrealistic. I can guarantee you, most Americans want Medicare for all. That's
Most
not
of them
me.
do.
That's polling that shows that most
Soon,
Americans support
universal basic
tax.
income might be something too.
Yeah, UBI, as when we get robots and AI taking human jobs, that will be a necessity, but we're not there yet.
No,
And
not
plus, the U.S. government is way too improperly built to handle that kind of program.
yet. Oh yeah, without a doubt.
They
Continue.
So what we're going to be seeing here is I really do think that I'm interested to see what the Supreme Court will be saying with the race-based district thing. I'm really also interested to see what Texas will do with the gerrymandering. Well, I don't even know if I should call it gerrymandering because the map doesn't really look that bad, honestly. Because they like to point out like we've seen on the left of people saying this is unfair, this is gerrymandering to the highest extent, and I don't think these people have ever seen the Maryland map. I live in Baltimore. Dude, these maps are drawn like spider webs. They make no sense. If you were to present me with one of these maps in Maryland, I would absolutely think, how did this get by legislation? Who feasibly thought these Maryland maps were a good idea? So like gerrymandering isn't just a Republican issue. The Democrats do it just as poorly. And Maryland's one of the best examples of it. And
Maryland is bad.
Oh,
bad gerrymandering, bad.
And the thing is, so I want to ask you your opinion, Mikal, because but neither of us are lawyers nor studiers of the Constitution. So I guess I'll ask a different kind of question. I was originally going to ask on if you think the Supreme Court would overrule the race-based district thing, but I think a more proper. I agree. I think they will.
So I got a legal studies minor. I think I could dive into this.
All right, take us away with your legal studies minor then.
So do I think so? 1,000%.
I think so. Yeah, but I can't give a logical argument for why.
Conservative controlled, because it's going so. I read on it a little bit, and the argument it works. So
it makes sense.
The argument is discrimination.
Yeah,
same thing that they did with affirmative. Well, same thing that they did with affirmative action. It's the same exact thing in the playbook, which makes a lot of sense. Democrats are now seeing discrimination turned on their heads after fighting for it, viving for it, speaking on it so adamantly. Yeah. Throughout the decades.
I mean, every time I hear a thing about the Democrats being like representing minorities, I always think about that Joe Biden quote: "If you don't vote for me, you're not black." Like, man, a rich white millionaire from Delaware really can speak to black people about what it means to be black. Yeah, man, like they really completely misunderstood what it meant to be the party of the minority fully.
And I remember that minority definition has changed to now it's which I think some groups may be taken out because it dilutes really like the meaning of like how legislation should be written. Because like if you write minority groups, that's including now Jewish populations, disability populations, veteran populations. So those are all discriminated groups that are now coupled with what, that discrimination definition was naturally and was really meant for, which are, minorities of skin and of demographics, not
Yeah.
of occupation and things that they've done in their life for minority and things that from birth have given them a disability. Not saying that they are not a minority, just saying in the sense of race minority, they do not fit that definition. So I do
Yeah.
think that's what the Supreme Court is going to be looking at, is that definition, and really how has it guided a lot of these maps to be done. I think the term gerrymandering comes from, I think it has to do something with it was one district that was so badly gerrymandered, well, redistricted, should I say,
At the
that it
time
almost looked
before the
like
term existed.
it looked like a salamander almost
Ooh.
on
Ooh.
like the map itself and how it was broken up in all different areas. So that's kind of where that slogan of gerrymandering comes from, in a
Yeah.
sense. So it's basically what's happening now. It's a national. That's a good way to put it. Actually, it's a national arms race in gerrymandering. Basically, everyone's looking to go who's going to be first to get their commission, court orders, referendums, legislation passed, and who's going to be. It's no longer first to the post. It's going to be who can ever, redistrict the fastest and have their members, ready for 2026 and be able to cut out members from their districts.
Yeah.
And there's only a few other avenues that, in my opinion, I think it's something that I would take or I would advise a state to take. Looking at New York, they have a independent redistricting commission, and actually, the New York governor has a way to expedite changing and redistricting of the state. She's looking to get rid of the commission
I
across the
saw
board.
that. I
So no
saw that.
commission, just do straight legislation and or court order. Well, they're court ordered, so they would be court ordered. Um, so just give kind of more details on what that independent redistricting commission is. So it's the most widely adopted and pragmatic method in delegating redistricting to independent commissions composed of citizens rather than elected officials. These bodies are designated to operate outside of legislative control, selecting members through applications, lottery, or balanced appointments to ensure diversity and impartiality. So I
It's
think that is a
interesting.
model that is something that should be done. That's
Get the
also a
citizens
model that
involved.
we
Get
were
the
trying to
people
do.
involved.
Right. It's also a model that we were trying to do as well at the state house, but then the Republicans had the reign and the leadership. So it was something that just didn't, get picked up. So a main advantage of this is, this approach significantly reduces gerrymandering by removing the self-interest. And I know self-interest is, I go all the way back to, when talking about things like this, go back to the John Locke clean slate theory. Self-interest is the one thing within humans nature, that's something that can never get lost, in the sense, unless it's something through repetition of practice and repetition of thought, as we grow. So this is removing that self-interested politicians from the process, leading to more competitive districts and a better reflection of voter preferences, in a way.
Yeah.
It promotes transparency, through the public engagement, and has proven effective in creating fair outcomes, with studies showing lower partisan bias and commission-drawn maps compared to the legislative ones that we have actually been seeing. Like, I think Crockett's was like a highway,
Yeah.
basically. It looked like a highway within two, like a small mass on one side and a bigger mass on the other side, but just cut across the state, in a sense. That should not be how districts and states are, cut up to where representatives should be representing. So this
Well,
model is also a cost-effective and timely, as commissions can complete the process a year post-census. So basically, 2030 comes, at 3031, you would have that commission's final report, on what it should be. And it states like California, Arizona, Michigan, trying to do it in Pennsylvania. Use non-politician commissions where members cannot hold office to have recent lobbying ties as well. And then just the other method, which I think could be something that is integrated with the ever rising of AI and tech within the government world, a algorithmic, I'm probably saying that wrong, or computer computerization of redistricting, basically.
yeah.
So it's a more innovative and increasingly feasible approach, which is involving more algorithms being used to generate and evaluate district maps automatically and based on mathematical criteria. So I think the dangers with that, you could probably read it as I'm saying it. Someone
Yeah.
can make an algorithm that has something embedded into it, just as when I was in grad school, I was reading an article about individuals applying for jobs and how AIs would actually, they'll just read through real quick, and if you don't have the right words in there, your application is basically thrown out the door. So I think
I,
this is going to be something that. Mhm.
I would include specific stupid words just so I could like hit
Right.
the.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say I did it too, but here to that, here to that. But yeah, I think algorithms like Markov chain, Monte Carlo, MCMC start with a base map and itinerarily adjust boundaries to create thousands of millions of possible plans, basically. So they enforce rules such as equal population. Districts must be connected and compactness of districts, and also the enacted map is then compared to the ensemble to check if it's an outlier, indicating political unfairness. Tools can incorporate additional neutral factors like preserving county or municipal lines. So an advantage of this approach, it's highly objective, fast, and scalable for large states. Detects gerrymandering by quantifying deviations from neutral distributions, promoting fairness without human bias, and then includes transparency, efficiency, potentially reducing litigation by providing evidence-based maps and not just maps that are from a commission, from a court order, and things of that nature that may not have that evidence-based backing.
Yeah.
So research has shown that algorithmic methods produce more effective, more competitive districts than traditional ones. Just some
This.
disadvantages, just real quick, and they may overlook local factors as well, like natural barriers, like rivers and things of that nature, may miss over required high quality data, and can introduce unintended biases, kind of like what we were just talking about, if inputs are flawed.
Yeah.
So it's complex. It's needs expertise with it. Might be prolonged on the debate on the level and what really that algorithm design should be. But Pennsylvania is looking like a state that's actually going to have some promise and possibly being a pilot for something of that nature, which is something we'll be continuously to check on to see if that's something that Pennsylvania does do. But as this national battle of redistricting goes, I fear for a lot of constituents, who are they going to have representing them?
Yeah.
If their values, if their concerns are really going to be listened to, or if they're going to be brushed to the side, because now this individual in 2026 will have another 2 6 years to make their impact on those individuals. So
Yeah. No, it'll be
um,
interesting to see.
yeah,
It'll be interesting to see the effects. I do think I'm a big believer in this, that the less power we give to politicians in the federal government, the better. They and I also mean it's just on like the higher, like I'm more of a state right guys. I won't even say state right. I'm more of a, we should put as much power in the lower levels of politics than instead of giving all the money and power to the Fed. So originally you hear that, yeah, it does lean towards state rights, but it's more just local and state rights than federal power. And
local sovereignty.
yeah, and I do absolutely think that we need to make moves towards getting rid of the bias and the human factor that we see in a lot of these things. And when we have the ability to do it, I do think it should be tested. And I actually didn't know that they were looking into using computers to to
Yeah,
create redistricting maps based off of many factors. So I'll you only get that kind of information here at Behind the Ballot, folks.
that's right. That's
So
right.
so I'll be very interested into seeing that. I definitely do think that gerrymandering is an issue on both sides. People who try to deny it are generally those people who are just committed to their party and refuse to see otherwise. because the Democrats do it, the Republicans do it, they both do it, they both always do it. They accuse one side of doing it, the one side already has done it. Every accusation is a confession. You know what I mean? How that saying goes.
Yep.
So it will be interesting to see, and I'm eager to stay in the loop and keep our listeners updated on this manner. What about you, Mikal?
Yes.
Well, a little bit of a final note before we wrap up.
My fellow balloteers, we will continue to watch all of these topics that we have discussed today in detail, and please check our Twitter account at, was it behind capital T ballots on X for, we are starting to do tweets on the topics that we're going to be speaking about on our episodes. And also just want to add another note. We both greatly appreciate everyone that has done the poll for our guest speaker. Just wanted to announce we have a solidified date, which is going to be next Wednesday, August 13th at 3 o'clock. So that is going to be our first guest episode. Definitely excited. Going to be bringing on a big name that works for the administration. If you guys can kind of garner from the polls that you have been answering, it's from the Department of Health and Human Services area.
Yeah, it's not Trump.
Won't give too details.
We couldn't get Trump yet, believe it or not. We tried.
Yeah, I won't give too many details on exactly who the individual is, because he has a very much extensive bio and has done a lot of great things and is continuing to do a lot of great things with RFK over in that department. So definitely please look out for that episode when it comes out. Continue to go to our website and fill out the poll and check out all of our content that we are constantly pushing out. We always appreciate the love. And just a last little note, one of my best friends got engaged yesterday, Jules Picozzi. Shout out to you. And just want to leave that on as a little note.
Best wishes to the newly engaged.
Yes, best wishes to the newly engaged. Thank you again for listening to another informative, balanced, and engaging. I said that backwards, but an engaging.
I screw up the saying every single time. Every single time.
But thank you for listening to a engaging, balanced, and informative about hour and 30 minutes with us. We appreciate
longer than I expected to be, bro. Who cares?
It's a lot of good stuff coming out. So we definitely appreciate having you guys listen. Please look out for the next episode, as we're actually trying to do 3 episodes a week now, pushing out more quality. So definitely continue to look. Check out the shorts on our Instagram page. Check out our tweets on our X page. And we will keep everyone updated on any new endeavors that we do look at. And definitely check back for our next podcast. And thank you guys for listening. This is Mikal Jenkins.
This is Muhammad Alec.
And we will see you guys next time.
May peace be with you all, and God bless America. Have a good one, guys.
Have a good night.